All right, everybody, man, what's happening, y'all? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. Of course, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC Seawells, and we're gonna talk a little bit of football today. We're gonna talk about some jobs in the SWAC that I perceive to be difficult jobs to win at consistently, hard jobs or whatever you want to call them. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit. We're gonna just chop it up. So since you're here, why don't you go ahead and check out those socials, Facebook.com/Swag Talk, Instagram is Swag Talk, Twitter, Swag Talk 76, email swagtalk76@gmail.com is the email address. So make sure to check all of those out. Go ahead and hit the subscription button if you haven't done so already. Um, like to thank you. If you have subscribed already, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Hit that notification bell so you can be alerted to any videos that I do upload. And like the video, share them, and feel free to comment, man. So we're not going to waste too much time before we jump directly into this. But first and foremost, this is a celebration in my Rick James, Dave Chappelle voice. We are going to salute Miss Ameshya Williams from Jackson State being drafted in the third round of the WNBA draft. First pick of that round. So salute to her. She is the first player from the SWAC to be drafted in the WNBA since 2002 when Jacqueline Winfield from Southern was drafted. And she was the first SWAC player. So Amisha Williams is the second SWAC player ever to be drafted in the WNBA. That's a 20-year gap. That's I'm not even going to get into that because I know there's been some talent that probably had an opportunity that should have made it in that gap. But this young lady, man, she balled out every year that she was at JSU. Just a big time baller and well deserved, man. Everybody, it was almost a foregone conclusion, which is such a great thing in the SWAC that you can say that we knew that she was going to get drafted. We just didn't know when and where. But she is going to be a big factor in this team on this Indiana Fever team. So hopefully, she can go up there and make some waves and handle her business and show everybody, that the SWAC got talent. I mean, regardless, we talk this a lot. The SWAC is very talented, and hopefully, this is just the first of many to come after her. I know she's gonna have a bright future, and she's gonna be very successful in the WNBA and whatever else she chooses to do, outside of sports. You just wish only the best for this. This is a great, yep. Monday was a great day, man, for everybody. So just want to salute to her for getting her name called, man, and being there. And I also am rocking my shirt today. So just want to salute, let you know, see, you got to get you one of these. So just salute and just wish her the best, man. Now definitely gonna really fully keep tabs on the Indiana Fever, see how they doing, and just see how she's doing. So would just want to go ahead and throw that out there, man. Much love and congratulations to her, and much success. So with that, man, let's jump into why we're here. Um, we know it's football time, and with football and any sport, there's always expectations. There's always programs that are very successful. There's programs that aren't as successful. There's consistent programs, there's average programs, there's bad programs. There's teams that are up and down. There's teams that win every 10 years, whatever. But there are certain places that are just hard to win consistently at all. And we're gonna talk about a couple of those programs. And if you've seen the thumbnail, which you watching this video, I know you already seen the thumbnail, so we're gonna talk about Valley and UAPB. And this is no diss or no slight to these programs. I'm not here to throw no shade at them. I'll crack no jokes, although I do tend to crack a couple jokes at each team's expense from time to time. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm just here to give my opinion. I always like to throw that out there. This is my opinion of why I think these are the two hardest jobs in the SWAC, and honestly, which one I think is hardest is the hardest job. Now, there's some people might say, "Hey, man, why you don't talk about Texas Southern or even Bethune Cookman?" And I think Bethune Cookman's a place that's been mad successful, basically since basically since the 90s, so I really don't really see that they are a program that even would be considered as a hard program. Now they may have, the school may have some money issues, but I know that they are a pretty decently supported program, and they won a lot. So um, I don't really see how that, some people might look at what they did last year, but that's just a 1 year thing. This is a team that's won postseason games. They've been to the Heritage Bowl in the '90s. They won the Florida Classic quite a few years in a row, and they had a rough year before, but I think that they'll be back on track. I think that's a program that's been very successful in the last 20 years. So I don't see them being on this list for being down for 1 year. TSU is a program that we've talked about before on the show and on SWAC Smoke. We've talked about it before. I think that TSU is a program that's a sleeping giant. I don't think that's a bad program at all. I think that's I'm not gonna say it's an easy job, because no job is really easy. Every job has their own issues. Even difficulties. Even coaching somewhere like JSU is tough. Expectations and just certain things make every job difficult to a degree. And TSU does have that difficulties, but I think that program can be turned around easier than these two programs that I'm going to talk about, for various reasons. One, they're in Houston, so if they were to ever be able to get that, get a handle on that this program will be off to the races, and they're on the rise now. So we'll see how they do. I don't really want to base this on a year thing, because any program that's down could be a hard job if they're not winning consistently. So that's mainly the reason why I didn't pick either one of those two programs. And both of these schools here are two teams that I've thought over the years, why is it hard to win there, or why you can't win there consistently? What's the problem? So I went back and forth on this, and I'm gonna run through my thoughts on each school, each program, and why I think it's the hard job. But then I'll say at the end which one I think is the hardest job of the two. Let's start with Valley. I mean, that's the school that everybody's like, man, Valley, it's hard to win at Valley. It's just a tough place to coach. It's a tough place to play. It's a tough place, all around. So first off, let's go ahead and look at some numbers for Valley. They are they've gone 55 and 179 since the year 2000. I only went back to 2000. Didn't want to go too far back, primarily because I didn't want to. I just didn't want to spend a lot of time going super far back in terms of in terms of I just didn't want to go mad far back. Let's just put it that way. So obviously this is a team that has not really won a lot of games historically, and that's obviously the big issue right off the jump. Everybody knows Valley has not won games, and they've never won the SWAC at all in their time in the SWAC. They've never won the SWAC. They've never won an East Division championship, and they don't really have a lot of 8, 9, 10-win seasons, even if you go all the way back. I mean, this is the team that was coached by the great Archie Cooley, had Jerry Rice and Willie Totten, Carl Blue, Carl Bynum. Excuse me, Carl Bynum. Carl Blue was at Jackson State. Excuse me, y'all. That's my bad. Carl Bynum, Ashley Ambrose, it's like Deacon Jones went there for a minute. So, they've had some great players come through Itta Bena, Mississippi, but this team just either because of other teams being great, or they just, whatever reason, they just could not win championships. They really struggled, and they've just never been able to get over that hump. So going 55 and 179 is just not, obviously that's not good. They haven't had a winning season since probably like the early 2000s, like Aries Nelson years at quarterback. It's been a long, long time since Valley's even won 6 games. They won 5 games, I think, in 2012, which is probably the last time they've won that many games. So this is a program that just hasn't really won. They don't really have the money. They've spent about a million, 1.2 million on football last year. Um, they play in a 10,000 seat stadium, Rice Cotton Stadium. Yeah, that stadium was basically renovated. It was deemed unsafe a few years ago and went a renovation. And I mean, this is a school that just doesn't draw the numbers outside of a few games. So there's not a lot. There's not a lot positive to really say without really just grasping at straws. Just looking at some of their top attended games since 2015. They had a sellout against JSU in 2021. 10,000, probably more than that, but they recorded 10,000. 9,875 against Virginia Lynchburg in 2017. That was homecoming. 2021 Alcorn game was 9,200. 9,093 was the JSU game of 2019. So they draw well against Jackson State. That's a huge rivalry. Alcorn will draw, from time to time. And homecoming is a hit or miss depending on who the opponent is. I saw a few homecoming games that were at the 2,000, 3,000 person range. So they draw well depending on if it's JSU, they tend to draw between 7,000 and 10,000. Alcorn can be between 7 and 9. Other than that, nobody else really draws extremely well up there. Those are the two teams that move the needle for the fans. And like I said, they don't play in an area that has a huge population, so they really need the opponents to bring fans as well to pack it out or at least make it a decent atmosphere. So to me, one of the biggest, and I'm gonna start with the cons. One of the biggest cons for me is that Valley is located in an area that's not super populated. It just doesn't have that that attraction that some other places have, and that makes it tough to get guys to come there. I mean, obviously the money is probably the biggest issue at Valley. They don't have the greatest budget. The school itself doesn't really have a lot of money. They don't allot the full amount of scholarships, and they're working with a smaller recruiting budget, and they have to be creative in how they do things, and that takes a special coach to be able to work within those confines to get guys to come there, knowing that you're probably never gonna win 6 or 7 games, no matter how well you coach. Now, obviously, that remains to be seen this upcoming season. So don't hit me with that Coach Dancy stuff yet. This is not a slight at all to what he's doing, and I'm going to talk about what he's doing in a minute. But just on paper, in a vacuum, you're probably not going to have a lot of coaches that can win, consistently at Valley. So that makes it tough. I mean, there's just not a lot to really draw from. They just don't have anything consistently that can get it done. I mean, they've had 5 coaches since 2020, since 2000, which is not a crazy amount of coaches for a program that only won 24% of the games, but they just don't. There's not an attraction to draw a guy there. You can get a Rick Comage who comes out there. He left JSU, but he was able to win a couple games here and there. But like I said, just not enough. This is a program that is gonna probably get a couple skill guys, a couple DBs. The line play is always gonna be Valley's downfall. I think they just cannot get enough line play on either side of the ball to win consistently. I mean, if you go back to 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, this was a team that ran the ball for negative yards per game in the season. They just were unable to move the ball on the ground. They weren't able to stop anybody on the ground. But at that point in time, they had a guy like Jeremiah Stafford, who was like Julian Stafford, who was like a crazy athletic guy, do everything all-purpose guy, but they just have been unable to consistently get guys like that and put them together. Valley's defense this last couple years was very solid, so that appears to be a turning point now. Maybe they can get over that hump, but when you look at what makes this place hard to win, it's pretty simple: money, location, facilities. A 10,000 seat stadium is not bad on the level that we're on, but they still don't have a great scoreboard. They don't have a great field house or anything like that, but they're working on getting those things. They don't have a turf field yet, but they're working on it. So they are trying to take the strides to improve the program, but it's still just not there yet. Because they're always going to be playing catch up to some extent, especially if this HBCU SWAC world becomes an arms race, like I think it will in the near future. Valley is going to be a program that can potentially be left behind due to some factors that they can control and some that they can't. So those are the biggest negatives, and I mean that's what makes this job hard. I mean, everybody knows Valley is a hard job, but if you have a guy who can come in and work, and I'm going to switch to my pros now. You have a guy who can come in and work like Coach Dancy is doing right now, then this program can probably be a 6 or 7 win team. Right now the East Division is just a bloodbath, especially at the top. So it's going to be hard to get beyond third place. So if you can mix it up and get in that 3-4 range, then to me that's a successful season. If you can do that consistently, then this is going to be a successful program. Some of the pros that I listed is they have some fan support, depending on who they're playing, especially, rivalries. They have a strong rivalry with JSU. Now, they don't win often in this rivalry, but they come out and they support at home. They play tough at home, regardless of, who their coach is or who they're playing. They are a tough opponent at home. They do have a tough place to play, for maybe not because of the crowd, but just because of the environment itself. It'll a tough place to play at. Guys always said for years, that the field was, the grass on the field was like, past your ankles, mosquitoes big enough to carry you away, and all those kind of things that people love to say. But they can, as you see with the list of largest crowds, they can fill that place up depending on who they're playing. And that makes it tough to play there because they will get after you if they get a nice crowd in the house. The state of Mississippi is a nice, talent-rich state. It's good recruiting ground. There's tons of JUCOs in that state. So, you have the opportunity to get guys who are college ready. Of course, the portal is something that is a game changer for everybody right now. So if you can, have a coach that can work the JUCO route and work the portal, you have a chance to win some games. Valley's, like I said, Valley is just one of those places that I don't think will ever be a championship program. Now, that's not to say that they can't, if the stars align, they can't, they can't win a championship, win a division. But I just don't think that they are a program that's gonna be that's going to consistently do that. So to me, that's what makes Valley a hard job. And like I said, obviously, that's a place that if you follow the SWAC for any amount of time, Valley just hasn't won much consistently at all. So Valley is probably most people's number one toughest job in the SWAC. And I agree that it's a very tough place to coach. But, if you can embrace the difficulties and learn how to maneuver around them, then I think that you can be successful there. The other job that I listed as a hard job in the SWAC, and some people may agree, some people may not, is UAPB, and it doesn't really have anything to do with this past season, although this past season was a microcosm of why I feel that Pine Bluff is a tough place to coach at. This is a program that was 92 and 144 since 2000. I think that's like 39% winning percentage. So they also have not won a lot, but in that time period, they've won 3 West Division championships and won SWAC championship. In 2012, they won SWAC. They won a division in 2007. Excuse me, 2006, and they won four because 2006, 2000, they lost to JSU. Excuse me, 2006, they won three. 2006 against Alabama in the SWAC championship. 2012 against JSU, and then the 2021 spring season against Alabama A&M, which they lost. So they went to the championship three times, lost one, won one, lost two. So they've had some success, but this is a program that just doesn't have that consistent success. They win and then they kind of fall off the cliff. Then they work themselves back up. Then they win and they fall off the cliff, and they've done that every time. So this is just what they did this past spring and not what they did in the fall. It's kind of what they do. That's their MO, and I think that's one of the reasons why I look at this program and say that this is a program that is tough to consistently win it. I mean, it should not be that way. They're playing a 16,000 seat stadium. Nice stadium. Relatively new, but they don't really have that fan support consistently. Their largest crowds have all been homecoming games, so they don't really draw anybody. If any, they don't really draw anybody outside of a homecoming affair. And to me, that's a mark of a fan base that just doesn't have that love and support for the program to turn out no matter who you're playing. Now, I'm not saying everybody packs out their stadium week in and week out. Honestly, nobody really just does that outside of probably JSU, who draws very well now, and they've drawn well, in past years because JSU has always been a number one or number two in the nation in attendance for going back to the 90s and 80s. So, that's probably one of the few places that will draw regardless of who they're playing. Southern is another program that's, typically in that mix, although they will have some games where people just don't show. FAMU is the same. But, this is a program that draws tremendously well for homecoming. And then, maybe if Grambling come, they might get 5K. Southern comes to town, they might get 3 or 4K. Other than that, nothing really is any kind of draw. So their largest crowd since 2015 was 13,500, and that was against Alabama A&M homecoming on 2018. Last year's homecoming against Southern, 11,964. The 2015 homecoming against Grambling, 11,437. Central State homecoming game 2017, 11,045, and the 2016 homecoming against Alabama A&M, 1,051. So 10,051 people. So that was in 2016, Alabama A&M, and that was homecoming. So 5 top crowds, all homecoming. That's not odd because a lot of people's homecomings are their biggest games. Everybody comes back for homecoming, but they don't have that other game that can draw that type of crowd regardless. So, even the teams that move the needle at other places don't really move the needle there. When you look at, just take Southern, for instance, 2019, Southern with the Pine Bluff, they were led by Ladarius Skelton, who's a Pine Bluff native, and everybody in that area really supports him. They didn't draw that well. Southern was struggling a little bit at that point in the season. Pine Bluff was actually winning. They had won against Alabama and them at Tennessee State coming into that game, and Southern was struggling, but they still didn't really draw well that game. They just don't really move. Nobody really moves the needle for Pine Bluff. And one of the biggest negatives that I'll say for Pine Bluff is that they don't have a true rival. So by not having a true rival, you don't have that team that'll draw a crowd outside of homecoming, and that that can affect a program. Because you don't have that money making game that's not homecoming, and that you don't have anybody that really just gonna get the people to stand up and take notice. They've had some great teams come to town in that time period, but they just don't draw. They just don't move the needle. This is a program that spent $2,300,000 $154,136 this past season. Um, they just don't really move nobody really moves the needle. And to me, that's probably the biggest negative for this program. They don't have consistent crowd support, which ties into that. Looking at the numbers, they just don't draw well. I know some Pine Bluff people, and I've heard that a lot of people go to games that just don't go in, and that's a problem. I mean, yes, you're making money off of tailgating, but you're not getting the butts in the seats, which affects your play on the field. If you don't have that crowd support, it's not a tough place to play. They've had 5 coaches also since 2000. Although I look at that as a different way that I looked at it at Valley. Pine Bluff doesn't really run coaches off. I think sometimes they hold on to coaches a little bit too long. They've let coaches stay a little bit too long in rec programs. Now, Cedric Thomas left on his own for a better job, so that's not much you could do about that. Doc Gamble, to me, is gonna be the litmus test to me. If he continues to struggle, are they gonna move on from him, or are they gonna stick with him and see what he does? Now, I'm not saying that if you run off a coach every 3 years, that's the mark of a good program, because that's also the mark of a bad program. You're not giving anybody any consistency. But if you just don't pull the trigger fast enough, you let guys stay too long and run the program down, then that's a huge red flag. Um, they just don't, like I said, they don't really make that push to really get guys out. Now, I'm not saying fans don't want coaches gone. I'm saying the administration doesn't really make that move as quick as possible. Another thing is they just don't win consistently. Like I said, they have 3 division championships, and after every one of them, they fell off. I mean, when I say fell off, they fell off hard. If you look at what they did in 2012 after they won SWAC, they immediately sunk to the bottom, and they didn't come back up until 2019 when they went 6-5. Then in the spring, obviously they won the division, and you see what kind of season they had this year. Same thing after 2006, they won the championship, and they were down until 2012. So they when they're up, they're up, but when they're down, they are very, very down. And that, to me, that's just a lack of consistency. What I mean, that makes, to me, that shows, and that's been with different coaches. So that's not something that you can say that that's just a this coach problem. That's every coach. That's happened every time. So they just don't have the consistency. I mean, you look at what they did under Lee Hardman. They won some games. They were a 6-7, maybe 8-win team, but they also were very bad, and that's just been that way. Excuse me, with every coach that they've had. Coach Thomas, he worked that team up from out of the doldrums, and by the time he got it right, he was gone. They've been losing guys in the portal like crazy the last year and a half. They've brought in some, but they've lost so much. And this is a program that's had talented players, man. They've had some really good running backs over the years. They've had some good receivers. They've had some solid quarterbacks. I mean, obviously they have an NFL offensive lineman, who came out of their program during that time period. They've had defensive guys. This is a program that has had talent all through their time, but they just have not been a consistent program, and that just makes it tough to win there. I mean, out of the 2 teams, Valley and Pine Bluff is the one that constantly has me scratching my head, because we know what Valley's problems are. Valley's problems are way bigger than Pine Bluff's problems, but Pine Bluff just does not take advantage of the opportunities that they have. If I were to say positives, they have a nice stadium. They really have a nice facility, and they are in a nice recruiting area. They're like 6 hours away from Dallas. They're 6 hours away from Birmingham, which is another area that's football rich. You're close to Mississippi. You're close to Tennessee. You're close to Louisiana. So if you had a coach who can get out there and dip his hands in those areas, you can pull some great players, and they've done that, but they just cannot win consistently. Um, that's really, that's just really the thing. Like, this is a place that if the cards were to fall right, I think you can be very successful here. But the fact that they are consistently up and down, they just a very inconsistent. They're a very inconsistent program, and to me, that's what makes this a hard job. Like I said, being in a position to win and have success, and just not being able to take advantage of it with multiple coaches makes for a very hard job. So if I was to say which job I thought was harder, I would pick Pine Bluff, because, like I said a couple of minutes ago, Valley's problems we know. Valley's problems are some that probably would never be able to be corrected, and you kind of have to work around those and have a certain mentality to get the job done, like Coach Dancy is doing right now. He's making the most of every opportunity that he has, and he has that lunch pail mentality that he's going to get out there and grind, and he knows that he's not going to have what a lot of people have, so he needs to be a dog out there on the recruiting trail. He needs to be a dog out there on the sideline. And he just needs to be a dog out there in the community, and he's doing that. Pine Bluff, there's no real reason why Pine Bluff should be in the position that they're in and year out, and that's what makes this job hard to me. I'm not saying that this should be a division contender every year, because typically, you're dealing with Southern and Grambling, sometimes Prairie View, and now Alcorn. So you're dealing with programs that have been successful. Just if you look at from the last time Pine Bluff won SWAC in 2012 to this past season, you're dealing with some really good Grambling teams that won the SWAC and went to Celebration Bowl. You're dealing with some Southern teams that won the division and won SWAC in 2013. You're dealing with some Prairie View teams that never won the division other than in 2021. But they had some very explosive offenses in that time period. You're dealing with the Alcorn program that's historically been a SWAC champ and an East Division contender. Now they're on your side. And you also are dealing with a TSU program that seems to be on the rise. So you've had to deal with some tough opponents in that time period, and that makes it tough to win championships. But this is a program I think that could be a very successful program in terms of winning 6, 7, 8 games all the time. They just don't have, for whatever reason, they just don't have the support to get it done, or I don't want to say the want to, but they just don't have the support, and they haven't been able to do that consistently. Three division championships in that span of time is not a good look. But when you look at a program like Prairie View, who in recent years has been a program that a lot of people are looking at positively, they don't have a lot of division championships. They only have 2 since 2000. Obviously Prairie View had been down for many years, but they're a program that is on the rise, or at least can be considered a contender, although they haven't crossed that finish line but twice. Texas Southern, same thing. They haven't won the division but once, and that was taken away due to some NCAA violations. So this is not to say that Pine Bluff is the ultimate hard job, or that it's harder than Valley. But to me, if I had to say which job I would say is that one, because it's like having a decent job and not ever being able to not ever being able to do anything with the money that you have, because you just don't spend your money right, or you blow your money, and nobody can ever figure out why you never have money or whatever, as opposed to a person who may not have the best job and they're making do with what they have, and they're having a successful life, or they're having a beneficial life, but they just don't. They why this person isn't able to do what they want to do. This guy here, you just can never figure out what his problem is, and that's what I feel like Pine Bluff is right now. Now that doesn't mean that they can't turn this around. Obviously, that doesn't mean that Valley can't turn this around. And I think Valley is a program, especially this season, that's going to be better. Even if their record doesn't indicate that, I think they'll be better just because I think that Coach Dancy is doing a great job with this program. Pine Bluff is, I just don't know where to forecast them in the future. Obviously, you can't write them off. Um, Coach Gamble can right the ship. Maybe somebody else can right the ship. But this program, until they consistently show me that they are committed to winning on and off the field, then I feel like this job is tougher than Valley because they don't have, that natural rival that can draw the crowd in. They just don't have some things that just a good program can consistently have. So that's kind of my thoughts on this. I just wanted to put that out there. I hear a lot of people talk about Valley as a hard place to coach, hard place to play, but Pine Bluff doesn't really get brought up in that, and I think some light should be shed on that. So to me, I think Pine Bluff is the hardest job in the SWAC right now, and it's just because they just don't have any consistency. So with that being said, I'm your tour guide, C. Wells. I'm gonna stop the bus so I can hop off. Tomorrow, SWAC Smoke live as usual, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, another edition of SWAC Talk coming at you. And that's it, man. I'm gonna catch y'all tomorrow for SWAC Smoke, and y'all have a good hump day. And we out of here. Peace.